Mr. Thompson here. So we're looking at United States History Standard 3, which is analyze the causes of the American Revolution. More specifically, we're looking at part A of that standard, which is explaining how the French and Indian War and the 1763 Treaty of Paris laid the groundwork for the American Revolution. Beginning in 1689, Great Britain and France fought one another in a series of wars for control of European and colonial trade. The French and Indian War was the last of a series of wars that was fought between the countries and their allies. The war began in North America because of ongoing British American expansion into the Ohio River Valley, which France also claimed was theirs. The French persuaded their Indian allies to join them to prevent further settlement into this disputed region west of the Appalachian Mountains. That wasn't enough for the French to win, though. Great Britain eventually won the war. The 1763 Treaty of Paris was the negotiated settlement that ended the French and Indian War. So it forced France to turn over control of Canada to Great Britain. France also surrendered any claim it had to any lands east of the Mississippi River, with exception to the city of New Orleans. So France has just given up a lot of its stuff. But hey, that's what happens when you lose a war. You would think that because American colonists fought alongside British soldiers and defeated the French in the French and Indian War, that their bond and relationship would have been strengthened through the trials of war. However, the outcome of the war strained the colonists and British relationship even more and fueled the colonists' call for independence. The colonists felt empowered because of their successful military contributions throughout the war, and they also felt disrespected by the tax burdens and restrictions placed on them after the 1763 Treaty of Paris was signed. The spoils of victory were not enjoyed by the colonists, who believed that their militia groups played a key part in the British military success. Therefore, this tension that was created by the French and Indian War and the 1763 Treaty of Paris really laid the groundwork for the American Revolution. The end of the French and Indian War brought Great Britain many benefits. The British were now in control of the largest empire in the world and were in a dominant position in Europe. However, over 70 years of fighting in a bunch of different wars had nearly bankrupted the British government. The French and Indian War had more than doubled the British national debt. So Britain's up to debt to their eyeballs. British had debt on debt on debt. As a result, those living in the British Isles endured heavy taxation, high inflation, and unemployment during this time. With the French and Indian War over, the American colonists breathed a sigh of relief. European and American Indian threats to the American frontier were removed, or at least reduced, and allowed American land speculators to now sell land in the Ohio Valley. Furthermore, the end of the French, Dutch, and Spanish privateers in the Caribbean meant that colonial merchants could expand their trade networks and reap handsome profits by dealing directly with the West Indies, Africa, and other parts of the Americas. As the British government insisted that American colonies pay for their security, colonial governments questioned the need for permanent British garrisons. The British government saw the prosperity and wealth of the American colonies as a way to pay for their war debts. The British government wanted to lower the colonial administrative costs, so they hoped to pass those costs onto those colonies through enforcing existing taxes. To ensure smuggling was prosecuted, they formed an extensive customs service. The king's prosecutors found it difficult to obtain smuggling convictions in colonial courts and created vice admiralty courts empowered to identify, try, and convict suspected smugglers. So watch out, smugglers. That's what the vice admiralty courts have to say about that. These courts were superior to the colonial courts and did not have a jury, but instead a panel of military officers who served as judges. The American colonists believed that the use of courts without a jury violated the English civil rights. The American colonists believed that the use of courts without juries was a violation of English civil rights. That sums up Standard 3 Part A, explaining how the French and Indian War and the 1763 Treaty of Paris laid the groundwork for the American Revolution.